So, good afternoon. Today I am here with Lee Kirby from Salute Mission Critical, and Lee is going to talk to us about getting veterans into the data center industry and some of the alternate paths and different ways to get in here. Again, whether you're degreed or not degreed, there's lots of paths into the data center as a whole, and there's lots of ways to do it without coding. So, with that said, Lee, please tell us about you and about Salute and kind of how you came to be, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Gary. So we started Salute in 2013, and I serve as the chairman there and have since then. It's been a great ride because we started with the focus to solve a problem, which was unemployment of veterans that had done one tour and come back and were getting out of the military, and they were suffering unemployment of almost 25%. Had just finished a bad recession in the economy, so that could be expected. But the thing that wasn't expected is that the industry was considering these soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marine as unskilled labor. So when we worked with the unemployment offices to identify those that were looking for jobs and started the interview process to bring them on board, it was mind-blowing that they were considered unskilled because veterans are not unskilled. And the thing that we want to teach the industry is a veteran is not an entry-level employee. They come with a vast thousands of dollars worth of training already invested in them, leadership skills, decision-making, problem-solving, all of the skills that you would associate with that, plus the technical skills that they get even if they're not in a technical specialty. An infantryman, for example, will be maintaining their equipment based on a list, a preventative maintenance list. They'll be maintaining their weapon systems, their communication systems. They'll be negotiating with locals. They'll be managing teams, and they'll be executing their part of the plan within the broader strategy and understand where they fit. That's enormously a wealth of asset, I think, when we're looking at the industry that's suffering a huge personnel shortage. So we combined those two. We had an unemployment problem, we had a personnel shortage, and have been able to take advantage of that and now have over 300 people working full-time in 7 countries. So I think we've proven to the industry that you can take any veteran and turn them into a data center technician.
So talk to me a little bit about the process. So if I'm a veteran, when do I start with Salute? How do I find Salute? How do I reach out to Salute? And then what's the process of turning me into a data center employee? You don't have to code to be in this industry, obviously, and there's tons of supporting different trades and things, but kind of talk to me about the process from a Salute standpoint.
On the supply side, there's several places that we tap into, not just the unemployment offices, but the transition sites of people getting off of active duty. And the reservists that have been recalled to active duty are going through those same sites and processes. So we can identify those veterans. And then veterans that have left the service and been out of the service for a while and sometimes didn't pay attention to all the assistance that was available to them are responding to ads that we place when we're looking to hire in certain areas. So we start the interview process, look at them for aptitude and attitude. We have a test that we put them through to find out if they're naturally inclined to mechanical or electrical or IT and where they want to go too, because it's a personal choice thing. So we'll align them to that with the specific job functions, and then we'll get them rolling on a training program that's both hands-on and online training, because they'll learn it in concept and then they'll practice it in execution and then continuously go through that. We have about a 12-week rigorous program that gets them to the point where we feel like they're competent, and they'll work with supervisory supervision. And then they'll continue to grow. They'll be with us anywhere from 2 to 5 or 6 years. And some of the leadership cadre will be with us the whole time. Just like in the military, a small percentage rise through the ranks and become the leaders and the trainers. We have the same thing going on at Salute. But we get mostly folks that were enlisted, but we do get some officers. But the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that there are a lot of enlisted people that have degrees or technical training that they had before the military when they chose to serve. So we find those through the interview process, and they go through the program faster than others that didn't have any formal education.
Yeah, and I can say, having had veterans that worked for me in the past, they have a level of discipline, which I think is important for a few things. There are some tasks that, whether you like it or not, they're just a methodical. You got to do this before you do this, before you do this. And oh, by the way, if this doesn't work, these are the people you reach out to. And I think that carries well over from a military background, because that sort of process. But also, I think it can bring a level of chaos a level of sanity to the chaos that happens in some of our everyday careers. It is definitely a diversity in thought because most of us aren't military trained and we don't have that same sort of logical thought process as things go forward.
And I think you're absolutely right. Some of the strengths I see in veterans are problem solving and decision making, and that kind of resonance to be able to narrow it down and focus on that and get the mission done, not let the distractions get in your way, and understanding that you're part of a team and that you need to communicate and coordinate to get anything of any significance done makes a veteran a great team member.
Yeah, not everybody's a good team member. We all know that, right? So as they come in, let's talk about how you get them trained up. So part of it is a hands-on, very much like an apprenticeship, right? And then at some point, do you bring in certifications, or are they welcome to do certifications as part of that? I mean, I get that it's kind of a boot camp, if you will, but in our industry. And then, the learning process. So do you work with customers to get them specifically trained for those customers? Is it, you said you're in multiple countries. Are these just because those companies happen to be multi-country, or do you work with veterans from other countries? Let's talk about that a little bit.
So we do work with veterans from other countries. We primarily follow U.S. customers into other countries. So we're in 7 countries now. We've got Canadian veterans, Irish veterans, English veterans, Dutch veterans providing services. But our company as a whole, the DNA that runs it is very much like the military because we're set up to very effectively recruit, train, deploy, and support on a continuous basis. And that's what our clients like, is that we deliver quality services. They don't see the training that goes on for the new people, but they see the competency that results from that training. We'll put them through our 12 weeks boot camp, let's call it, which we may actually need to brand that.
It is kind of fitting if you think about it.
They get to a point of competency where they're going to work under supervision, and then they've got continuous training that can go on because we've got a variety of online courses that we use from the vendors based on which track they've chosen, and they'll go through those to get those certifications. Probably about year 2 or 3, they'll start working on DC Pro certifications. We've been running them through the FMCI course. We run all of them through their safety course, and that's been a great add to the training program. So they start getting the higher level industry recognized certifications, and they start being candidates for positions outside the company where the clients that we're working for will hire them into their ranks, and we'll backfill them and continue to do the services. We also have a great advantage. We've got a strategic relationship with Infrastructure Masons, and their scholarship program opens up to the community college that do mission critical operations training, to the CNET training, to all of the stuff that's available through the scholarship program. And working with 724 closely, there's been a variety of opportunities that have come up there as well. So it's a mixed match, and what we try to do is have enough to be able to adapt to each person, because each person is different on where they start with their knowledge level and where they want to be.
So talk about how you discover what that process is. Like if I come out and I'm a cook, what do I do with you guys to figure out where that fits in the data center industry and kind of the skills that are adaptive? And then do I go the mechanical route? Do I go the electrical route? Do I code? Do I become a translator? Do I, hit the real estate side? How do you figure that out?
It'll be a combination. We'll have the assessment test that will tell us where the aptitudes are. Are they better mechanically or electrically? What are their thought processes? Do they look like they'd be a good project manager? A lot of people don't realize what good project managers cooks make, or what great technicians infantrymen make. So it's based on their skill set. It's not based on the specialty they served in, because they do a lot of surrounding functions to be able to support that specialty. And then it's based on their aptitude, their past training and education, their own self-training and education. And then we adapt that program for them, and our training team will track them and make sure that they're progressing along. Integrated in there is the client site that they're working at has their own requirements. So they'll need to know all of the emergency operating procedures for that client. They'll need to know all the tasks that are required on that site. So there's job-specific training. Once they've gotten to that point where they've got all the job-specific training, they can start looking at professional development. And that's when we start talking certifications and such.
That's awesome. And do you find sometimes, that is, I think one of the cool things about the industry is if you start down one path and you decide that's not really for you, your exposure to a million other paths are there. So do you find that sometimes, you start somebody down one path and then they get exposed to something else and they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Let's move on to that path.
And we consider that success. It's not the majority of them, but we've had folks come and they were on the electrical path and they were using their VA benefits to go through Cisco training. So then they switched to the networking path. We had other folks that had been getting a degree and they've switched to the software development path. That's all good because it's all a discovery. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was young. I figured it out a few years ago and now I'm doing it.
There you go. There you go. Well, I think we all change. I mean, I certainly have. I've done the coding side. I've done the networking side. I've done the data side. I've done a little bit of all of it. But again, it's the exposure. And I think that's one of the misnomers of this industry is that you have to write code or you have to be good at math to be in here. And there's certainly millions of things that, from the design build part to the operations that are different. And, we talk a lot about trades in the industry and women in the industry, but vets in the industry, I think, bring another unique skill set. And to be fair, without trades, none of us would have a job because nothing would be built anyway. So, but, you think the military, a lot of the skills, rebuilding infrastructure in other countries absolutely apply to the infrastructure here.
Exactly. There's so many skills that just walk across. And then there's other skills that if you just dig a little in the interview, you find out just walk across. We've proven at Salute that you can take any veteran and turn them into a data center technician or a position in the data center business. Now, I think the other companies need to follow that lead and determine what do they need and how could they crossfit that to not the specialty, but what the person has done and what they have, and dig a little deeper in that interview process. It's a kind of false positive sometimes to use what you call MOS translators that a lot of HR shops use, and they'll put 11B in and send them down the route to be a security guard. The 11B, by the way, is infantryman.
Good. Thank you for clarifying that, because I just got this deer in the headlight look on my face for those of you that can't see me, not knowing what that was.
But that kind of sends people a false negative, and I think they need to dig below that and find out what did they do to be an 11B. Did they maintain their equipment, their weapon systems, communication systems? All of that stuff should be fed into that. I think it's too hard to program, and it needs to be part of that HR recruiter's responsibility to really define.
And you bring up a really good point, and this has come to light a lot because of the skill shortage and the shortage of talent in this industry, or the underemployed people that are in and around this industry, that we really do need to start focusing on the person and the skills. And sometimes that might mean growing the talent. Sometimes that might mean that somebody is in a very adjacent type of industry, but with a little work or a little training, it can translate well into something over in the data center industry.
Exactly. And that's why I'm so excited about some programs that are coming out right now. We're hiring folks that are delivering pizzas and sandwiches and moving furniture and making coffee that are enormously skilled and have just shot up through the ranks and are in leadership positions in our company. Our industry is ripe for talent like that, to be able to bring them in and see them rise so quickly and adapt to it. I think that it's a problem of being invisible. And so we're going to change that. Infrastructure Masons Veterans Initiative that I'm leading up is partnering now with 724, and we're going to combine our forces to get representation across the country so that we can have people go to the transition sites on a regular basis, tell about our industry, and let them know what a enormous opportunity this is, because veterans fit into this industry better than any that I've seen, because it is changing so quickly. And a veteran is used to a changing battlefield, constantly adapting and constantly learning. And those are skills that are down into the DNA of how they act. And that's what we need in this industry.
Yeah, I mean, this industry is a big, giant ecosystem, right? It takes all pieces of the moving parts to make it happen. And I think we have to do a better job not only of skill evaluation, but doing outreach, because a lot of people don't know about this industry, quite frankly. They've seen some little video on what a data center does, or they saw a little bit in some movie that kind of talked about it, but people don't really get it. And I think it's a good thing that you're doing, bridging that gap between what the heck is it, and we need talent, and finding a solution to fill that talent.
Exactly. So combining forces, I think, is better than us working separately. I think we're going to see a big an impact of this. It may be a year or two before it's really felt, but we're going to see more veterans understanding what's going on in this invisible industry, because that'll help what Bob and them have been doing with the International Data Center Day and getting out to the schools and the STEM programs and trying to make people know that we even exist so that they can start thinking about a career here will help across the board, not just military, but all of the high schools, the colleges, the tech schools, everywhere.
Sure. And, I'm a, me, I'm a firm believer in all of that outreach. But I think too, even starting with junior high and high school kids being able to introduce industry might change what they do when they join the military.
Exactly.
And, and I think too, in some cases, there's some people that join the military because they want to see the world, and you don't realize that you can see the world. You just get to choose the place of the world that you go see, obviously in this industry, because data centers are everywhere that there is. So the infrastructure masons, you bring up a good point. This is a really great organization, and I'm happy to be a part of it. But, the Infrastructure Masons has a big scholarship program, and I think people don't realize that. So, there's kind of this split. There's data center education in very strict pockets in the U.S. that typically follow the big data center communities. In the middle of nowhere, where there aren't any data centers, it's probably not part of the curriculum. There might be an IT curriculum, but it's not for everybody to move and go to college somewhere else, or they end up with a huge amount of college debt. And I think that, this is definitely a way to bring some of the military back and allow them to participate in the industry without a massive amount of debt. And then if they do want to get their degrees, Infrastructure Masons is a good place. And one thing I really like about that organization is that 50% of that scholarship money is dedicated to women. And you brought up a point earlier when we were talking about not just being a solution for the veterans, but also being a solution for the veterans' wives. So if you could talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. And I think people always focus on the 200,000 veterans coming out every year. Well, a major portion of them are married, and their spouses have been following them and supporting them through their career. So to me, I see them under that same veteran umbrella. They've served our country. They've worked with their veteran partner to be able to continue life while they're deployed and serving our country. So they deserve a break as well. Oftentimes they're dismissed because their resume looks terrible because it's broken up. It's 1 year here, 6 months there, because of their supporting their spouse.
They look like job hoppers, yeah.
And they shouldn't be. There should be a special designation, military spouse, to give them a chance to come in as at the same level, go through the same program, and have the same opportunities. And I think that's going to be a resource pool that is not immediately obvious, but once tapped into, will double the size of that veteran pool. And they're great candidates. I think about my wife taking care of 3 kids when I was deployed. That's a monstrous job to get them to 3 different sporting events, get them to school, feed them, house them, get everything done, and be the head of household.
There's a lot of organization there. Yeah.
That's a great project manager. In my
right.
life.
Right. Absolutely. Which I think it's great, and that's something actually that, you could potentially support the women while their husbands are deployed, because a lot of what you do is not, you utilize a lot of the tech that allows you to train tech, which is something, as an industry as a whole, we really could do a much better job of, right, is using tech to solve some of our problems, but certainly could be, of service to the women while their husbands are deployed and, help them along.
Exactly. So I think all of these forces are starting to come together in a very positive way with Infrastructure Masons and the programs they have, both for women, for veterans, millennials, and with 724 and the programs that they have. Combining forces here is going to make a lot more sense, and I think have a lot more payoff.
And it brings that diversity, right? I read an article the other day that scared me to death, actually, and it was talking about how if you have certain people program artificial intelligence, that their prejudices are encoded in the program. And so if we don't have a lot of diversity in some of this, these machines are not going to be our friends later, right? They're not going to look at us like we are today. So I think all of those things that bring that diversity about. And, even as you start reaching parents and spouses, that also reaches their kids. And there's not a lot of knowledge about the depth and breadth of what you can do in this industry anyway.
Yeah. And I think veterans represent a great diversity opportunity. We're a microcosm of society when you look at us from a gender or from a race point of view. But we also are a group of people that have been trained to think in a way that is different, to think strategically, but also execute tactically. That kind of mindset brings a wealth of, I think, diversity to the platform that will let you make better decisions, help you execute better.
Sure. Yeah, I think all of these things are really important. And are you guys going to participate in 7x24's International Data Center Day?
Absolutely. I think it's a great thing. And if that invisible infrastructure, that invisible industry, if we can raise the awareness across the board, it helps us all. It raises all boats.
And be less of the Maytag repairman as they have, outside on it. It works, so we're good. So, yeah, I think all of those are really important things. So if somebody wants to get in touch with Salute instead of, going through unemployment, or which I didn't realize you could actually find out in the unemployment lines how many vets are in that list, huh? Yes. In the unemployment rolls.
And HR recruiters should be leveraging that too. So if you're in any location who the veterans are that are unemployed in your state.
Well, I think, you bring up a good point, and I think we're going to see a big change in HR. I think we're seeing it in some organizations that are a little more proactive, but that's one of those areas we've programmed these machines to go through resumes and people get kicked out and nobody really looks at them. And there's a lot of companies that do lip service. We want to bring on diversity. We want to bring on vets. We want to bring on women. But there's nobody that actually looks at the resumes that come in with a critical thought process. So, being able to bridge that gap and work with companies and say, hey, look, this veteran has these skills. And then a lot of times I think it's that palm plant to the head. Oh, well, those are the exact, we could work with those skills. We just didn't know they existed.
Exactly. And what I think is people have always thought of veterans in the data center industry as telecommunications specialists, submariners, and those are the veterans that they've focused on. That's become a little industry in and of itself with recruiters helping drive up the rates there. Those guys are great. The women and men that come out of those technical specialties into our industry have proven themselves and proven the value. But what I want them to do is not look at 5% of that 200,000, look at all 200,000. We've proven at Salute you can turn a veteran in as long as they want to be in this industry. They've got the aptitude, they've got the attitude. I think everybody needs to start looking past the MOS, past the rating, and not talk about an infantry person or a cook, but look at what they did to do that function, because it immediately glosses over when you talk about infantry that it's all combat and Rambo. It's not. There's boring stuff that they do that is perfect for what we do.
Right.
They maintain things, their vehicle, their communication system, their weapon. That's what we want.
Sure. And, it takes all kinds. Some people are going to be great head down coders. Some people are really good at following a checklist every day, which in a data center, you want that in your operations people, right? Go out, make sure this, and this, and this, and this is working. And, not everybody has that. Not everybody wants that. Some people like to think creatively, but I think identifying the skills that we can adapt to this industry is absolutely huge. And I love that you guys are kind of being that mediator and helping HR understand and helping some of these companies understand where those skill sets fit in.
Exactly. Appreciate it.
Perfect. So if you want to reach out to Salute, there will be a link in the bottom or in the podcast description here. You can also look at Salute online. They're kind of everywhere, but a great organization if you are a vet or a vet that is looking for a change or maybe wants a new challenge, because I can absolutely guarantee you there is not a day in IT in this industry as a whole that doesn't provide some type of challenge or opportunity for learning. Reach out to Lee and the good folks at Salute. If you're a company and you're trying to fill some of this skill shortage, this is a great way. You can tag all your diversity. There's women vets, there's vets of every nationality, and, it's a good way to supplement your team. So Lee, thank you again for your time. Certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we look forward to the next podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Bye.